Welcome to part 4 of our live training session here at their Mitsubishi Evolution 10. In our last video, we didn't complete the 93 octane full throttle tuning because we had an issue with our inlet to the turbocharger actually collapsing. The coupler was starting to become a problem and shutting off the air going into the compressor, which as a result was going in and reducing our power greatly. So this video, we're gonna be coming back into our 93 octane tune, finishing that off, and then moving into doing our flex fuel based tune with our Tephra V3 ROM. We have a lot of things to cover in this training tutorial. Let's jump in so we can check this out. Welcome back to our live training session here with the Mitsubishi Evo 10. In our last video, we had to cut our calibration process short because we ran into a problem on 93 octane when we turned up the boost to 28 pounds. The engine was shutting down. We were finding it was a relatively abrupt shutdown. In fact, we take a look on screen right now, we can see the results of that. We see that we were getting this shutdown right here. That's kind of our orangish yellow line right here. We can see the engine was just pretty much falling on its face. We also saw the same thing right here at the very top, that green line. It was shutting down. Looking at the data, we were way below the load boost threshold, or boost cut in our calibration file, and we weren't getting throttle closure. So the ECU wasn't what was causing the problem. I suspected that was the inlet to the turbo because it had a 4 to a 3-inch all silicone coupler, and the coupler was pressed against the shifter cables because it's very, very tight within the area with this particular drop-in turbo. So what I've done here, and just kind of going through the screenshots here so we can just talk about what I found and then what I did to resolve it. The intake in its current form, we can kind of get a picture here. It's very difficult to see, but we'll see here we have the silicone coupler coming off of the inlet of the turbo. Now this particular turbo is an ATP turbo. It's not the Garrett turbo that was designed for the Evo 10. So it runs the Evo 10 turbine housing, so it bolts up to the stock exhaust manifold and to the downpipe. However, the compressor side is actually different. It's actually larger and has a 4-inch inlet. The Evo 10 Garrett design turbo actually has a compact inlet and a compact compressor housing, and actually has a bolt-on inlet like the factory turbo does. So this is a bit different. So we have this 4-inch inlet to deal with, and what we have, as I've pulled everything apart here, we're taking a look at it, we can see that the inlet is extremely close to the shifter cables going onto the transmission. So that's why the silicone coupler was used. But what was happening with the silicone coupler is that it was actually getting pre-compressed because the shifter cables were pushing on it. And as a result, when we were getting up to the higher boost levels, it was actually sucking in on itself, and we were finding we were shutting down the airflow going into the engine. Now that's what I'm suspecting is happening here. So what I've done is actually used a different coupler. I used a 4 to a 3-inch adapter, and then I ran a 3-inch hard pipe right off the compressor inlet. So that should solve the problem that we're dealing with here, allow us to complete the 93 octane tune. Now this is only going to be something that I'm suspecting is the problem. I don't know for sure. We're gonna have to test that out here at the beginning of this video and just complete the 93 octane. Once we know it's good, we know it holds 28 pounds and everything's dialed in, fuel, spark, everything looks good, then we're ready to drain the fuel out and do the ethanol-based tune or the flex fuel-based tune with our Tephra V3 ROM. Because as of right now, we are tuning it just like it would be a standard ROM and bypassing any of the flex fuel functionality. Now this does have a driven fab flex fuel sensor kit that runs an Innovate flex fuel gauge. I have that in the glove box, and I'm taking a look at the screen on the gauge. It's showing about 10% ethanol right now. So it's reading, and I'm assuming that everything is wired right. It's all plug and play on the car. So once we get to the point where we finish the 93 octane, then we can turn our attention into going in and dealing with this flex fuel. So first thing we want to do is actually fire up the engine here. We'll start up our Evo scan, and then we will do a pull and just kind of see where we're at. Now the file that we have open here, this is the last file, the Watt Tuning 93 boost control. This was the last file we were dealing with in the previous video. I made no changes to it. We're simply going to make a pull and see where we're at. And then once we know what kind of power it makes, what the boost looks like, if everything is good, then we can start to adjust and tweak a couple things, because we were pretty much done with 93 octane. We know the idle and the cruising look good, all the fuel trims look good, and then the full throttle looked good up to the point where we turned it from 24 to 28 pounds. That's where we hit this wall. We're having a problem. Let's fire it up and let's do a pull real quick here. Make sure it's out of gear. And we'll go start our Evo scan software. Let's go start our data log here. And we're just gonna let it run for maybe a few minutes here and just make sure everything is going to be 100%. Now we do see that the fuel trims here were showing that they were pulling out a bunch of fuel. Now one thing I do want to mention with this, when I was changing everything over, I actually put on a new mass airflow sensor because the previous mass airflow sensor was throwing a low voltage code. I suspect by that intake collapsing, it was putting a huge strain on the MAF and it damaged it. So I think some of this fuel trim that we see right here could be a result of when it was previously running with that MAF throwing a low voltage code. So that's going to be something that I probably want to clear out. We're not worried about doing any part throttle tuning at the moment, so that's not so much of a concern, but we're going to see once we get everything ironed out in the car and do some drivability testing, we'll just check our trims and make sure everything is going to be 100%, but that's not going to be that far out of whack that we would have to immediately go in here for full throttle purposes and have to change anything. So this looks good right now as far as the engine goes. Let's just verify our coolant temp. Let's go down here and take a look. Coolant temp is going to be, and there's a lot of parameters here, a little bit. Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here, and you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.